Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Today we're looking at Lost March, an archetype that really impressed in Roanoke. A few top players took it to some high finishes, most notably got to top 8. And today I'm going to be showing you my build. Obviously mine is playing no Elm, so I'm going to have to justify that in this video. But this archetype is, still in my opinion a tier 2. It has easy answers with Decidueye and Tapu Koko and all sorts of spread variants. Malamar, in general, all has very good matchups, but Lost March is trying to prey on the amount of blacephalon, Buzzwole, and to be honest, Zoroark in the format. It can simply ramp into big 200 plus damage turns with an on-GX that can simply trade very efficiently on your opponent, and that's something that's very appealing, and which is why this deck has started to see some success. And this is the build that I've landed on. It's a little different from some of the others out there right now, so I've got a lot of explaining to do. But I've been testing this deck for a good few hours today, and this is what I've ended up landing on. So, first of all, we're going to play the 4-4-4 Jumpluff line. Obviously, both attacks, Natu and Jumpluff, carry the same effect. 20 times the amount of Pokemon in your Lost Zone, excluding Prism Star cards. The Jumpluff attacks for just a Grass, the Natu for just a double Colorless. So the intention is for a single attachment, both of these guys are going to be ramping into big damage. The way we do that mainly is via Skiploom's ability, Floral Path of the Sky. Once during your turn, you can put you can search your deck for a Jumpluff and replace it with your Skiploom, putting Skiploom and everything attached to it into the Lost Zone. So the Hoppip goes as well. If you were silly enough to attach an energy to it, that would also get into the Lost Zone. And any damage also is wiped, which is pretty good for early game protection against some spread, but in the longevity, you still have low hit points and will get destroyed in most cases. But this Floral Path is 40 damage for you straight away for that Lost March attack. So the more Skiplooms we get out, the more Jumpluffs we get is obviously happy news. You can see in the bottom right of weaknesses that I've got there, it's a stage 2 variant. Now, this Floral Path to the Sky ability does sort of mitigate the normal complaint that I would have of stage 2s, that you're relying on rare candies and such, but the complaint now becomes that we're worried about prizing stuff. Prizing any of these pieces of the Jumpluff line really can hurt your overall damage output, as we can sometimes whiff getting extra floral paths going, which is really bad for you. Obviously as well, drawing into your Jumpluffs is a nightmare. You never want to see this card in your hand. That's why we have 3 Marshadow and 4 Cynthia to try and shuffle our hand as much as possible to get them out so that we can get them back into the deck so we can pull them out again with that Skiploom ability. Very big factor here. A few other notes, both Skiploom and Jumpluff have free retreat, and the entire line has a nice resistance to fighting here, which is definitely relevant, so you can sometimes even tank against early game Buzzwoles, force them to find things like Beast Energy, Diancie, stuff like that. So definitely worth noting. If you're going first, I like leading Hoppip because you can evolve into Skiploom and have free retreat for using attacks of either Jumpluff or Natu. And if you're going second, you want to lead your Natu because that can actually start swinging from turn 1. So a small thing there. Let's talk about Natu. Obviously, it provides psychic typing, so the Jumpluff is great for dealing with things like Lycanroc. That's the biggest one I can think of that has grass weakness. Natu, very good for dealing with Buzzwole, and a few other Pokemon out there do carry that psychic weakness. So hitting for 2 pretty relevant types right now is very good. And this guy is just a basic, so as I said, it's a good lead for us. We can start swinging from turn 1 if we go second, and just that DCE cost for the Lost March gives us 8 total energy cards to try and swing with throughout the game to try and get big 2-prize knockouts. That is the dream. Another great way we can ramp damage is via the Trumbeak. No need for Picky Peck because the ability is all we're interested in. With this Trumbeak, you can simply reveal it, put it straight into your Lost Zone. That's a free 20 damage straight off the bat. That's the biggest deal here. But we also get to look at our opponent's top deck. If it's a supporter card, we can choose to put it into their Lost Zone. Sometimes this can remove annoying things from the opponent and add some disruptive element as well. Getting rid of like the odd Cynthia or the early game Elm could be really huge if you do get fortunate enough. And again, we are using a heavy line of Let Loose in here as well for early game disruption against the opponent. So combining this with also, eyeing up their top deck, and if it happened to be a supporter, we can get rid of it. Gives us some good control and disruption in the early turns, which is cool. Also worth noting, you don't have to do it if it is a supporter card on top of their deck, so you could essentially give them a dead draw the following turn if they're drawing into like an Acerola when you're already hitting like huge numbers, or draw into like a Guzma when your entire board is non-GX. These are, bad cards for them to draw into. Late game Elms, stuff like that. So you can keep them on the top of their deck for a dead draw. So that's pretty cool for you. Trumbeak usually in here for the damage, but there are intricacies with this ability to keep in mind. From there, we're going to have 3 copies of Marshadow. This Let Loose ability does draw us into more cards oftentimes, because the build I'm playing, not going for Elm, has a lot of insta-play cards. Lots of Ball Search, 4 copies of Blender, and having Let Loose oftentimes is getting us more cards at the end of the day, which is pretty cool. For a bit more fuel to get an extra 1 or 2 basics down is the idea, but at the same time we're hurting our opponent's setup, and that's vital for us to try and evolve our fragile Hoppips. If we can force our opponent into suboptimal turns, that's going to be ideal. Make them whiff attacks, whiff evolutions, stuff like that. Obviously really big against some of these stage 2 variants that are reliant on Ninetales right now. If we can deny them something like that, or an early Elm, it's going to be amazing for us. So this is a very disruptive deck, as well as a very powerhouse build that it can turn into late game. But it's usually the fragile early game, which is where this deck falls down. So trying to let loose your opponent into worse cards is definitely a win condition in itself for this deck. Finally, for Pokemon, 2 copies of Oranguru. Instruct is great for the deck, as I've already mentioned. We're playing so many insta-play Ball Search cards. Treasures as well can reduce our hand size, as well as Blender, obviously. So we're trying to get as low as possible. We're only playing 10 supporter cards total, so there's not a lot of clog that we can have here. And that means that we can get supplementary instructs throughout the game, which is always really nice for us. Let's have a look at my items. A little different from a lot of lists. Going to play 1 copy of Stretcher. I kind of like 1 over 2, just having an extra physical Pokemon because I'm playing the 4 Blenders, I think is what I like. Onto 2 Mysterious Treasures, giving us more outs into early Marshadow is cool. Also having that synergy with just discarding 1 card. I have seen a few builds playing Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball, obviously the more versatile option for getting all the Pokemon you want, but the discards are that much more painful, and usually I prefer to Lost Blend targets rather than Ultra Ball them away, because our hand size is normally so low that I'm enjoying the Treasure instead. 3 copies of Nest Ball for extra basics. I think this in combination with 4 Net Ball is loads. The Nest Ball notably can get Oranguru early game, which is great for us. There are the 4 Net Balls, very important to grab ourselves early Hoppips, as well as getting us energy throughout the game, always insta-playable, which is why we want to play 4 copies of this rather than 4 Nest Balls, because in the mid-game, if our board is already full of, hopefully, Jumpluffs, we can not use Nest Ball, so it's unplayable, whereas Net Ball is always an insta-play, even if we don't need a target. Similar for Great Ball, always insta-playable, good to find early game, great to find Skiplooms and Trumbeaks throughout the game as well, so that's always very good for you. 4 copies of Lost Blender, this is always between 3 and 4 count from what I can see. I like the 4 count. When we're playing 24 Pokemon, it gets us extra ramp, and that's all we need really to get into those 200 plus numbers. The Blenders are really going to help, and they're also hand thinning for us to synergize with Instruct. Really, really nice to max this out in my opinion, and really does sort of try to mitigate the awkward prizing things that we can have with this. If you know you've prized, like 1 Skiploom, you can start blendering away excess Hoppips, stuff like that. That's always going to be something worth noting. Onto my support account, just 2 copies of Guzma. I've had this at 3 for the longest time, recently cut it down to 2 because all I want this deck to do is to try and get as many Pokemon in the Lost Zone as possible. Sounds very simple, right? But Guzma doesn't help you do that. Typically, if you're ramping as good as as best you can, that's going to get you more wins than the odd Guzma here and there. I feel like because we're a non-GX deck that can eventually get into 1-hit KOs, we only really need to Guzma once in most games to make sure that we can ensure the win. So I feel like Guzma, yes, it's great for making sure we can hit 2 prize Pokemon, but I think you don't need to have more than 2 copies because we want to go all in on having as many insta-plays as possible, reduce the clog as much as possible, and go all in on the Instruct engine as best we can. So I think, honestly, you're better served just having an extra Ball Search or an extra Blender to reach against whatever's in your active position. That's going to get you more wins than Guzmas that just sit in the hand. But of course, it's versatile, it's useful in the late game for pushing on GXs, because your opponent, if they're ever going to win, they have to put non-GXs in your face to try and stabilize. Then we're going to play 4 copies of Lillie and Cynthia. Seeing as I just made my case with Guzma, I'm going to make the same call with Elm. Elm is okay turn 1, very good turn 2 if you've got the ball search engine rolling. But you want to Lillie turn 1. You know, even if you play Elm, you want to Lillie turn 1, because not only are you getting your balls to get all the Hoppips down, you're getting yourselves immediately into Skiplooms, immediately into Trumbeaks, Lost Mixers, developing Oranguru, which is a big thing. If you turn 1 Elm, you can't develop Oranguru. That's really fragile for you, especially if they just deal with the Hoppip straight away. Your board gets really weak. So I like having the Lillie. You see more cards. We can secure Let Loose as well for disruption against the opponent a lot more often. Just drawing more cards is better in general. I will note that if you want to play like something like 2 copies of Elm just for the turn 2 play to secure Skiplooms, that's definitely worthwhile, and you can, you know, I don't dislike that. I've played around with both builds. I've played 4 Elm, I've played 2 Elm, I've played 3 Elm, and 0 Elm. I've had like 2 hours of each. I know that's not a huge amount of time, but it does definitely get you a feel, and I feel like the games where I was hitting Elm turn 2 was kind of overshadowed by the clog that I would have in the late game because I've not thinned those early game cards. So it's specifically very good on turn 2, but pretty weak in almost every other situation. It's reasonable on turn 1 if you already have a lot of good ramp, but essentially it secures you hitting 120, and we don't want to hit 120 turn 2, we want to go higher. So that's why we're going to go all in on drawing lots of cards instead. From there, 8 energy cards. I know it's slightly on the high side. You can go 7 if you just want to drop a DCE. I don't hate it at all, but there are some shuffle decks out there right now, and whiffing energy is just the saddest thing for you. Additionally, we have no switch cards for Oranguru, so having DCE to move out the active aplenty is going to be nice for you. So yeah, that is going to be my 60 cards. For Pokemon, there's not too much to debate here. If you want to play Tapu Lele GX, you can do. I think the deck thrives by being all non-GX. Sometimes you are just too slow if you have to put down a Lele on your board. That's your opponent's win condition every game, because sometimes you really do scrape by the skin of your teeth if you have a slightly slower start. Obviously, Lele can improve your starts, but I feel like it's not super mandatory to play it, and sometimes it can be more of a hindrance for you. In terms of trainer cards, there's not too many cards again. Looking at counts like that second stretcher, if you want to play Nest Ball, there's something you could consider. Timer Ball's another one, fishing out those Skiplooms and fishing out Trumbeaks more reliably. I say reliably, it's on coin flips. I don't like flipping coins, that's why it's not in here. But it can be extra insta-playables that you can bear in mind to try and get more ramp early on. At the moment, I'm happy with 4 Blender instead. I'm playing enough Pokemon, I think, that I see them often enough. The Blenders can start binning them, which is good for us. And the only other thing, of course, I've mentioned it the whole video, and it's always something that is going to be for debate with this deck. When I first saw the Japanese scans, I was like 4 Elm all the way, and I've sort of reduced to currently playing none, but I could see this going back up and down as I test more and more. So, you know, let me know your thoughts on the Elm engine. This is going to be mine, and hopefully in the games we can justify playing a, you know, ball search Lillie engine instead, because we're trying to see as many cards as possible in the early turns instead of just guaranteeing basics. I feel like with those 7 Nest Balls plus 4 Great Balls plus, you know, we're playing 4 Hoppip, 3 Natu. We have plenty of outs to early basics without the need for Elm. We are going second, and as I noted, Natu is our best lead when we go second, because we can protect our Hoppip a little bit better from turn 2 attacks, which is basically protecting our damage output. And it means if we get the high roll potential of getting lots of Trumbeaks early, we could even knock out a non-GX start. So pretty good lead here. We have Hoppip, Natu, and Oranguru already with a backup supporter, but we are up against Mally. If it's a spread Mally, it's going to be really bad for us. If it's a gas can variant, we have a chance, but they still play lots of non-GXs. Playing spell tags is already very bad news for us. That's 3 knockouts on things like Natus, so this is going to be a hard matchup for sure. As I mentioned, this deck does not want to see Malamar, especially if it's this sort of spell tag spread variant. It does not want to see Decidueye. You basically have no win con against those decks. I don't feel like a Ditto Machoke is worthwhile playing. I think this deck is just in the spot where it has to accept that it has bad matchups. and has to sort of move on with its day and just hope to have a good run. Because I don't think the Machoke does enough, especially when a Ditto is only 40 hit points. Decidueye players, you know, if you go first against a Decidueye player, if you go second against a Decidueye player, the Ditto is oftentimes not going to survive anyway, so, you know, it all feels kind of awkward. Do I want to opening Cynthia or opening Let Loose? I think Cynthia's the answer. We got one Trumbeak. We can also let loose afterwards. We do hit a DCE as well. We hit for weakness, so we just need one more Trumbeak here to get early prize. No luck there, but we can establish another Hoppip, which is always good for the longevity of this game. We can then go into let loose. We still have our instruct afterwards, so this is okay. Our opponent didn't have energy to manually attach, but this is still fine. We hit our Trumbeak, so we can take a knockout from on the Inkay here. Psychic weakness, always going to be nice. That's another spell tag. Feels bad, man. We can grab ourselves extra Hoppip, and we can draw one card with Oranguru. Our hand is currently clogged with one of our 2 Guzmas and one of our Jumpluffs, which is really annoying, because we only play 2 Guzmas for this exact reason. And we pick up a Natu, which isn't great either. So we're taking a prize here and hoping it can help us out a lot. Treasure is definitely going to help us thin a little bit, which is nice. We can Guzma around a spell tag next turn if we're feeling lucky. We don't need to ramp too much in this matchup, obviously, because he's all non-GX. They have their own treasure. Getting rid of an Ultra Ball, finding a Mally. So they must have at least a supporter in hand. Yep, there's the Cynthia. They're going to Psychic Recharge to themselves, maybe? No, to the Inkay, sure. They can retreat in Hypnosis, I guess. They're going to Spell Tag up as well and hit that Hypnosis. We do wake up, but it's sort of a prize for prize deal, so we'll have to decide if we want to. Picking up DCE means we can deal with the Mally and get around Spell Tag for one more turn. I feel like it's what we're going to do here. It is at the expense of a DCE, which is a little bit annoying, but I don't think there's much we can do here. Getting rid of a Mally means that he's unlikely to get an attack off against us, or he's less likely at least. So we can do this. I feel like treasuring away a Jumpluff just because it's going to be sat in the hand, and it gives us an extra Instruct draw to keep us rolling here. We've obviously already used a supporter, but finding Skiplooms would be ideal. Blendering a Natu is tempting. We actually need it for our damage, of course. So when I say tempting, I mean vital. Let's retreat and march. You can only get around the spell tags for so long, but because this is a viable, like a useful knockout anyway, felt like a good turn to use it. Also reduced our hand size back down, which is pretty nice. Shrine is irrelevant. They're going to stretch her back Inkay. They've manually attached this turn. Are they going to be able to... Depends if they play physical switch cards for their... If they can search out a Mally and get a physical switch, they can get a knockout. If not, the Inkay is sort of sacrificial. And at this point, it doesn't matter too much because we're ahead in the prize race enough to start taking these spell tags. Unless, of course, he is also playing Cocos. We've not seen any hint of them just yet. No DCEs, no Cocos, no Nest Balls. But because he is playing Shrine, it's kind of a bit of a giveaway. We'll see. We'll see what he can do here. Maybe it's another Hypnosis turn. Looks like he's having a little think. Just the pass from him. Picking up a Grass Energy is annoying. It's not a playable. Because we have to get through so many non-GXs. Wow, that is an absolutely abysmal hand. Because we have to get through so many non-GXs, we have to I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. We have to hold on to the energy, so I couldn't just treasure it away. I'm going to start powering up Oranguru, because we don't have many other options here. Take the knockout on this Inkay. You can choose to knock out a Natu or a Hoppip, or just spread for future spread. But that was a really awkward Lillie. Weakness kind of carrying us right now. The DC on the Guru means we can either retreat out of him or start using Psychic ourselves if he wants to just deal with Natu here. Again, it's up to him. If he's playing a Coco deck, he could just put 2 on a Natu, 2 on a Hoppip. We shall see where he wants to go. Here they come. What? That's really weird. Okay, let's find another game. I don't know if he timed out or something. Pretty bizarre though. Maybe he lost connection. I'm thankful though, because we drew into an awkward hand and it's an awkward matchup. So let's just move on from it and come on to our next game. Excuse me for the croaky voice as well. We are going second. We have DCE for Oranguru to retreat or attack turn 2. Something to bear in mind. Our opponent leads their own Marshadow, Sophocles, which means we're probably against blacephalon, which is a deck that we are trying to target, which is nice. They're actually going to put down a blacephalon, which is really good for us. We want to see those GX Pokemon. 4 energy in the discard already. Good start from him. Pretty thankful that he led his Let Loose, because his hand is pretty nice. They're going to use Lele, but they've already used Sophocles, so just developing for next turn maybe. Pretty weird decision. They should probably try and get an manual attachment in as well. After all this, there we go. Over to us. Picking up a Natu isn't bad. Let's scout our Pokemon here. So we prized a Hoppip, so we probably can blender away one Skiploom if we want to. 2 Natus are in here, so I can also happily get rid of that if I want to blender it. 2 Trumbeaks is a little annoying. Both Guzmas, okay. So I think I want to Great Ball first here, because we want to have as many Hoppips as possible. So let's do that. No Hoppip, but I can pull out Trumbeak. That's also potentially something we can blender away if I want to. I'll play the Nest Ball, or sorry, the Net Ball now. Get our first Hoppip. Because we have prized a Hoppip, it kind of makes me want to use, or sort of keep the Natu around, but we do have our other 2 in deck, so I don't mind blendering early. Let's start with the Trumbeak. Fire Energy doesn't help us. I feel like I am blendering Natu Skiploom here. Get us one more draw, gets us a second Oranguru, which isn't bad. Let's put that down. We can do 1 Instruct pre-Let Loose and then probably 1 after. That's not much help. Let's just Let Loose. Second Hoppip is really nice. We can't Instruct, but we can... Oh, we can still Cynthia. Ha! Always forget that we still have supporters with this deck, because you do so many actions without using one. There's a Trumbeak, which is nice. Let's fire that off. Hitting a Cynthia this time. And we let loose them out of their Cynthia. Oh, sorry, their Lillie that they proactively wonder tagged for, which now looks pretty silly. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, but we don't really want to use the Natu because we've already got rid of 1, and we need to be conscious about the Pokemon we have remaining, so I will just bench this and pass. The dream would have been leading a Natu there and knocking out a Marshadow, but it's still going to be hard for them to take a knockout this turn. They could obviously pay retreat and GX, but that's not taking an actual Pokemon off our board at the very least. Awkward thing here is because we only have 2 Hoppips on the board, it can only really be an additional 40 damage. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that would be 160. We do have the Blender in hand though to possibly make that work. If he does want to burst GX, which is probably his most aggressive move, unless he has some Guzma E-switch shenanigans going on. There is an E-switch. Maybe it's just so he can burst this turn. Yep, here comes Blacephalon. Another Poipole hits the board. They want to use as many non-GXs against us as possible, obviously. And they're going to get rid of one of their own Guzmas. We pick up a DC, which is really nice. Am I lost blending away a stretcher here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kind of makes sense. We can get the most Lillie draws possible. It's a little scary with the amount of Natus that we're going to have accessible to us, but I feel like it's going to be worthwhile. Let's instruct once. Oh, another Jumpluff is awful. Let's Lillie. We can treasure a treasure, find ourselves one of these that we can blender away. Also improves our odds with a Great Ball to actually hit a Skiploom. There we go. Do we still have enough Jumpluffs in here? I think we do. I don't think we prized any Jumpluffs. We prized a Hoppip, right? Yeah. Right, so what damage are we at? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So we have the knockout with this blender. Can play this for no target and get another instruct in. Just want to keep cycling with this deck, basically. We have a Jumpluff ready for next turn. Picking up that Hoppip from prizes is fine. How many blenders have we played so far? 3? Yeah, 3 of our blenders. He's in an awkward spot to attack us this turn. He needs the help of B-String. Just a Cynthia. Yep, and they miss B-String. Good early pressure from us there. Not phased by the awkward prize. Blenders galore helped us get there. That's why we want to play 4 of them, because they can just be right here, right now, 40 damage. Let's grab ourselves a quick Cobalion and grab ourselves another game. Good old Lost March. Psychic Dragon. We're against an Ultra Squids. That's another deck that did well in Roanoke. We definitely prefer seeing Ultra Squids to spread Mally. That's for certain. Going first with Net Nest. Unfortunately leading Marshadow. So finding an energy this turn is also going to be useful off of our opening Lillie here. Picking up a Cynthia is a little awkward. I think we always want to develop Hoppips. We have our full Jumpluff line. Prize 2 of our Marshy boys. Oh no, 1 of our Marshy boys. We led 1, obviously. Prize 2 Natus, though. That's definitely something to bear in mind. Good thing we still have all of our Jumpluff line in deck. That's going to be integral for us. Let's grab these. And the Lillie drawing us 5 and guaranteeing a Cynthia, I think, is better than just Cynthiaing off the bat. Getting more basics is amazing. Let's get them all. I'm going to attach the DC to the active because we know we've prized Natus, I think. Let me think about this. I could attach and then Nest Ball for Natu and then let loose. No, that doesn't make sense. I think I'll attach the Grass Energy thinking about it now. And I think I'm actually holding this entire hand. Because next turn I could... I can't even Guzma Inke next turn. We probably still want to develop stuff. Okay. We're going to take a different route here. We're going to go Oranguru, attach, let loose. Try and limit his plays as well, obviously, is something. Drawing into 2 Skiploom is absolute PogChamp for next turn. Let's pass. Holding the Great Ball because he too could be playing Let Loose and at the same time well, I mean, there's not much else other than that, but so he's able to treasure out an Inkay and still Cynthia, so the Let Loose didn't completely wreck him, but I'm still happy from my own side. Picking up a Blender is big as well. If we whiff a target with Great Ball, it does make life a little more awkward here. But I think we're just going to play it. I'm going to pull out this Hoppip. I wanted to Great Ball pre-Skiplooms because worst case scenario we still could have pulled a Jumpluff out. We have all 4, so now we'll do our Floral Pathing before the Blender because we don't want to draw a Jumpluff, that would be bad. So the last thing on our list is hitting a Grass Energy this turn. We have a Blender and Instruct Draw, and then potentially a Supporter. Well, that's going to be nice. We'll Instruct pre-Cynthia. There's our Energy. There's our Cynthia. We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 160. Not the knockout, but it's really good pressure. Nothing there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is it worth me swinging? I think it still is, because there's nothing in our hand that tells us that we'll get a knockout, like a one-shot next turn. I know it sort of sacrifices a potential Jumpluff, but if he wants to attack with this, we're always going to be ahead. So, I think it's fine. 160 turn 2. Close. Very close. Not quite the dream, but we got close. He put down a second Ultra Mally, which is again very good for us. They do play Let Loose. We know. When you know, you know. Got rid of our Grass Energy, which actually is a little frustrating. Drawing some pretty awkward cards as well. Our Stretcher has not been blended, so that's something to note. We can netball into Grass, which is fine. Drawing into all these Jumpluffs. Gross. Grab a Grass Energy. I think I'm treasuring away a Jumpluff here. And these Instructs are going to be important because we need to find a Skiploom because we have no Natus available. Lillie is nice. Is this Skiploom? No. Let's fire off the Lillie. Trumbeak is okay. Do I want to blend it though? There I was just misclicking on it when I could just blend it away. No, I think I just do this. take the 2 prizes. We have Guzma DCE if we are able to pull a Natu out of prizes, which is our backup option. There's a Natu, pretty good. Sort of like backup would be to like either top deck or blender into Skiploom and maybe some shuffle draw or something. Not a very good backup, but we had a 66% to pull a Natu, and we couldn't help the Lillie whiff plus Great Ball whiff. It's like a 13 card dig. Actually, not that many because the Lillie wasn't 6 cards, but what was it, 12 dig, something like that. Looks like they do play Tina, Distortion Door. Don't think he's very spread focused, so I don't think it's going to be a huge concern. Just a pass. I think with just a pass, we know we're in really good shape here. I'm going to Great Ball. Find that Skiploom. At the very least, it gives us more hit points right now. I'm going to obviously hold the Jumpluff. I may end up just evolving straight into a Jumpluff next turn. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's our last Jumpluff because there's 2 in here. We still have our Stretcher. Obviously, Jumpluff is still a stage 2 Pokemon that you can evolve into, so I'm actually going to attach an energy to this Skiploom with the idea of attacking with it next turn as a Jumpluff. We're going to take our 2 prize knockout as well. With a blender. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That would have been embarrassing. I'm actually going to get rid of this Jumpluff because we have the Natu DC backup anyway. And the Skiploom has free retreat. And this can still become a Jumpluff when we hit Stretcher. Giratina getting powered up. They're going to Cynthia. All looking pretty promising though. 2 to 5 on prizes. Even with some spell tag shenanigans, it's going to take a lot for him to come back here. Especially if he can't take a knockout this turn. He needs like a skateboard. Yeah, it's just a concede from him. Well, these games have been flying by, so let's have one more. 2 Mallies on the ladder, pretty interesting. Obviously, our first game didn't count like too much. I feel like we easily could have lost that game if it went long. But we'll see. We will see. We again get to go first, doing pretty well on those. This deck is way better going first than it is going second, obviously. We have the Natu lead, which is nice. We again have some nice Ball Search and Oranguru opening hand, so it's looking nice. And let's have a think about our sequencing before we make any action. We want to find as many Hoppips as possible, so we're going to Great Ball pre-Nest Ball. Jumpluff is actually something worth taking because we are holding onto a blender, and it increases our odds of our next Great Ball, which finds a second one. I think I'll just take the Oranguru out here. We still need to attack with some Jumpluffs. We will blender pre-Nest Ball, I think. Because it gives us an extra draw for a basic. So let's do that. Just 1 basic so far. Let's now check. So we have a Hoppip prized. Okay. Let's get rid of a turn 1 Lillie. That sounds good. They still have Ultra Ball, but if they have to put a Lele down, that's also good for us. We still have Instruct. If we can hit a supporter, this could be a bonkers turn. Let Loose keeps us rolling. Lowers his hand size as well. No supporter. Actually, it's a very rough hand. So we got to hope that this this Riolu can't do much. We've got to hope that the Let Loose does things. Does shenanigans. Oh, they're a Garchomp deck. Wow. This should probably give us the benefit of some turns. We're already at 100 against them. Treasure. Are they getting a Lele here? No, because they just got rid of a Cynthia. Oh, they are getting Lele. Do they play Elm as well? But they have 70 hit point Riolu. Confused face. Wow, okay. They do find themselves a Gibble off this Lillie for 7. 2 Gibbles. Poggers. The dream. He's going to detect. It does flip tails, which is good for us. Picking up another DC. I might plant this on the Guru because it can knock out the Gibbles. Oh, he just concedes anyway. Well. Huh. Everyone's just conceding against this deck. And I think that's sort of testament to it, really. It's not a coincidence that people keep conceding to us. It's because they know that this deck just can keep pounding turn by turn. We were already at 100 damage there. Knocking out his Riolu is really his only draw engine. He should have probably retreated to try and protect it, but he didn't. Even though our hand looked pretty awful there, we could have powered up on Oranguru to take a single prize later down the line and drawn into more cards eventually. And we were taking a prize that turn. Maybe he conceded because he didn't have a Candy Garchomp plus DCE. He needed all of that basically to get any response on our active little Natu. Or he needed to DCE Lele, which comes with its own risks. So I think just the aggressive nature of this deck is one of the big key features of it and why it is winning games. And this has been fun to demonstrate the Lillie Nest Ball engine. I think the last game we had actually was our weakest setup. We only got 1 Hoppip on the board, and we instructed into pretty much nothing. So that was... or no, we let loose ourselves into nothing. The instructor got us let loose. But you can see that there's all these pieces going on. You get to play a lot of cards early. A lot of good fun to play this deck no matter what. And it's one of the best budget decks out there, let's be honest. It's a tier 2 or tier 1.5, I would be close to calling it, in the right meta. And for a budget deck, that's really good. So let me know if you like this list. Are you going to keep playing an Elm engine? I'll have the debate with you down below. I'll happily hear your arguments for and against it. I've posed my arguments for and against it after previously being on Team Elm, so that's up to you. Maybe my mind can be swayed. Let me know what you think about the archetype in general. Is it going to be good for Harrogate? And all that good stuff. I'd love to hear it all down below. For now, though, it has been Joe from OmniPoke, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.